Hey everybody, welcome to another comic book review. In this video, I'll be talking about Saga of the Swamp Thing Book 6. This is the final volume in Alan Moore's infamous run on Swamp Thing, and it picks up with Swamp Thing light years away from Earth. So he finds himself on the planet Ran, and Adam Strange runs into him thinking that he's a threat to the planet. And Swamp Thing just wants to find a way back home to Earth because after the situation that happened in the previous volume in Gotham City, his wavelengths were disrupted and he basically is no longer compatible with the Earth and the plants of the Earth. So he can no longer go back into the green that's on the Earth. So he finds himself on the planet Ran to begin with, and he runs into Adam Strange, and he prevents a famine on that planet. And then there's a whole section where it gets into what Abby Arcane is doing and kind of where she's at now, dealing with what she thinks is the loss of her husband, Swamp Thing. And she runs into her dad, the Patchwork Man, again. This next chapter is called Loving the Alien, and it's wild. It basically chronicles Swamp Thing's journey across a living planet that's also part machine. And as you can see, the format is totally different. There's like no speech bubbles. It's all just like full page artwork with text boxes here and there, and it's all from the perspective of this planet, this living machine planet, and wanting to keep Swamp Thing there, and it's absolutely insane. And then the next chapter rather, is on a different planet where Swamp Thing, still trying to get in touch with the green again, finds himself on a planet where every single plant on the planet is sentient. So all the people are plants. And when Swamp Thing goes to this planet, he bonds with the green, and that causes a massive disruption on this planet filled with sentient plants. And it's such a cool idea, such a cool concept. This next chapter, it's actually not written by Alan Moore. There are two chapters in this book that are not written by Alan Moore. The one is this one, and it has a lot of flashbacks to Jack Kirby's New Gods, and you get some really cool stuff here. This chapter, Swamp Thing learns to manipulate his wavelengths to make them more compatible with going back to Earth again. And then, of course, you get Swamp Thing, he returns to Earth, and you get to see what happens there. But that's basically the plot of this book. And the art is done by Rick Veitch and Alfredo Alcala. They kind of took over from John Totleben and Stephen Bissette, except for the one chapter I mentioned earlier, Loving the Alien. The artwork is actually done by John Totleben. So what he did was he made physical 3D sculptures, right? And those are what you're seeing images of in this issue, which is really, really cool. And the way it translates to the page is really cool, but I would have loved to see what the actual sculptures looked like in 3D form as well. In actual real life and not just on the page. So like I said, the one issue in this book, the one with the New Gods, that was not written by Alan Moore, and neither was this issue. This was the one where Abby Arcane meets up with her dad, and it's actually written by Stephen Bissette, and he comes back not as an artist this time, but just as a guest writer, which is really cool. Um, so I don't know. As far as the art goes, it's always wonderful. No matter who they get as an artist, the style is always very, very similar, and Swamp Thing always has this very distinctive look to it. Um, as I've said before in previous reviews in this series, like of Swamp Thing, I think the coloring is what does it for me. The coloring is so distinctive to Swamp Thing and kind of his universe, and like there's something about the colors that are just remarkable, and it's like that the whole way through the series, and I think that's partially what helps the visual style to remain very similar throughout the series, despite getting a whole plethora of different artists to do the art. It always looks very similar, and it's great. um, there's a really wonderful sequence in here where in this chapter where Swamp Thing meets up with Metron, and they go through, they call it the source. And so Metron sees all these images of just every single universe, every lifetime. He sees all of it. And there's some really cool callbacks. Like there's a callback to Sandman in this panel, which I absolutely loved. And he gets to see all these major historical events. And then when you get that same thing with Swamp Thing, it's beautiful because it's not like a whole plethora of different events. It's all centered around Abby Arcane, which shows where Swamp Thing's mind is at. He just wants to return to his lost love again, and that really is the emotional core of all of Alan Moore's run on Swamp Thing. I gotta admit, whenever I first started this volume, I was none too impressed about like the departure from the more grounded stuff. Like I always preferred Swamp Thing, like when he's on Earth dealing with things, as opposed to these giant cosmic events, you know? But Moore handles this really, really well, and it really grew on me after a while. Once I realized what was happening, and Swamp Thing is just kind of upgrading his power system over and over and over again, and making himself more strong, and kind of not even, he's already accepted that he's never going to be human again, but he's now accepting his status as basically a god. And that whole journey, that evolution of Swamp Thing is really fantastic to watch, and like to see that evolve. But always at the core of it is Swampy's relationship with Abby. It's I don't know, there's something about it, it's just really charming, and it shouldn't work, but it does. And the fact that it works so well is a testament to Alan Moore's writing ability. Moore is a genius. I mean, it's no secret at this point. He's made some absolute masterpieces, and his run on Swamp Thing is one of those masterpieces, I think. It's right up there with the likes of Sandman, I think. It's great, like lyrical, poetic, sci-fi horror. It's really top of the line. It's like grade A material, I think. So those are my thoughts on the final volume of Alan Moore's Saga of the Swamp Thing. I hope you enjoyed this series, and look forward to more videos in the future. Thank you for watching as always, and have a great day.